Okay, we've shown you how to map a cup of tea. So that was a very quick example of how you can get a process down and get the baseline. Obviously our processes are a bit more complicated than that, so let's have a look at the real example and what that enables you to do. So if we just look at a step for a second, you can see in there within this step I've got the role that's doing it, the system that they're doing it within. I've got processing time and break time in there. So processing time being the time that it takes a member of staff to actually do the work, or a system. It could be an automated task. Break time being the amount of time it waits before that step's done. So say a customer calls in, they spend 5 minutes in the queue and then 2 minutes on the call. This would be how you represent it in the system. I can add any fixed costs, I can add a value added indicator, I can turn on a risk point to highlight that particular step with a warning triangle. I can add documents or links to documents in, say, SharePoint to the step, which is much more important when you're using it as your process handbook and your publishing processes for training or development purposes or continuous improvement. I can also put inputs and outputs on a particular step, so if there are any inputs or outputs I can see those. Down the bottom here against each step I've also got a larger description field so I can really put what we're doing in that step, and I've got a remarks field so as we go through I can capture all the improvement ideas, problems or challenges with the current process. So we go through, we create the map. That's excellent. I've now got a map of the process. I can now start to look to analyze it. So something I might want to do straight away in the workshop is maybe break this out into a swim lane view. In order to do that in a traditional mapping software, you would need to completely remodel this map and manually make it into swim lanes, and that would be a piece of work that would take you a little bit of time. But to do this within our software, all you need to do is actually change the layout and flip it into a swim lane. So I'm just going to do that for you now. So we're going to go there, we're going to say I want to look at this from a roles perspective. So I've broken that out into a roles perspective, but maybe I want to use some of the other indicators. So I want to see the inputs and outputs as well as that, and I want to see the value added steps. So I can now see red, amber, green indicator, green being customer value, amber being business value and red being waste against each step. So I'm just going to turn off the inputs and outputs because that takes up a bit of the screen. That's great, I've got it in a roles swim lane, but I've also added IT systems, so maybe I want to look at it from the IT system perspective. Excellent, I can see the waste scheduling system steps, the waste management steps, the CRM steps, and those that are unallocated as well, so maybe not done in a system at all, maybe done in paper. I can also organise it into the customer value, business value and waste steps, so I can reorganise it that way, and at any point I can flip back and just look at it in the normal value stream view. That's excellent, that helps me look through it, and that maybe gives me some ideas around where the waste and the value is. But we want to start to actually go a bit deeper and look at costs now. So in order to do that, I'm just going to change my view, and I'm going to say I'm going into analysis mode, so just to get the screens right so it shows me the right screens that I want to see. And I'm also going to click on evaluation, so I want to use these show measures. So show measures enables me to annotate the map with the actual figures that we've used for processing time, break time, etc. That can be excellent, and any exports or sharing I do will share the map in the view with the things switched on that I've got switched on. But I'm actually going to use the show measures part which is going to highlight some bottlenecks for me. So let's have a look first and see where our bottlenecks for break time are. Straight away I can see there's our red step, nothing else in here. So if I was bothered about break time, that's where I need to focus my energy. Okay, what about processing time? So I flick on the processing time indicator. Strangely enough, the bin crew collecting the bins is our biggest problem with processing time. But actually, overall, we're looking to reduce the costs. So let's have a look at that. Because the system automatically saves, this has just thought I've moved something around, so I just need to flip back to analysis and just hit evaluate again because everything was showing up zeros. So now I can see a slightly different picture. Processing time showed me this as a problem. Total cost shows me these 4 steps being amber as well as this being a problem. So these are the more administrative tasks that are having a bigger impact in terms of costs. So I may want to focus in on some of those as things that we can potentially remove, automate, or just improve in some sort of way. So I'm going to come off that one for a minute and close our analysis tool. But actually now I want to have a look at costs. So if I click on the start element, you can see in this results pane, I have break time, I have fixed costs, I have lead time, and I have variable costs and processing time in there, so I can see how long it takes us to do this. Processing time wise, I can click on the chevron and see by role on average how long this takes us to do this. And also for costs, I can click on the chevron and break it down into the particular roles and how much that's costing us. So that's our baseline now. Not only have we got a baseline though, we've got a lot of information. So we've got a lot of the remarks in there, the improvement ideas. We've identified customer value, business value and waste. We've got inputs and outputs in the process, and we've got estimations of the time. Now, most of the time you'll be able to get the numbers relatively easily for this, and certainly the people doing the work will be able to estimate the amount of time. If those numbers are particularly important to you, you may need to go off and refine those numbers by looking at data that you have or just doing some sampling. Now this should be enough. I can export a report from here and show all the stuff we've learned. I've got my baseline costs. I should have enough of an idea to say whether actually some of the things we're proposing will make a difference to the process, and I should now be able to move on into the next step of the improvement cycle. So somebody could easily now commission a piece of work in here to say, look, we've seen enough, we know there are problems, so let's move on to the next step. That next step may be to apply lean to this. Equally, it could be to go off into agile or design thinking world and start to test some of the challenges we've identified in here with real users and understand more about user needs, and use those user needs then to come back and redesign a new process. In order to redesign a process, it's very simple. You can copy and paste this one and start moving it around and adding and removing stuff, but equally you can start from fresh. Once you've remapped and remodeled a new version of the process to validate whether it's going to deliver the benefits, then you can start to actually look at, so what's the difference? You can do all the same things I've already done in here in terms of analysis and identifying bottlenecks and things like that, but probably the most important thing for most projects is to look at what are the savings. So we'll look at this as 2 examples here. We've actually got missed bins where it's telephone only. We've got missed bins where we then add an online form, and we've got missed bins where we've added the online form, but we've also got in-cab technology, and that is enabling us to remove the unpresented or contaminated bins from the list, so not allow the customers to report them. So that's great. I've got those particular maps. You can see they're there. I've now mapped them, re-engineered them, and I now want to have a look at, okay, so what? So to our business, so what in terms of actually delivering those changes? So I now want to compare them. So what I can do is just easily go in there and say I want to compare misbins as is with misbins online form. Great, I can see straight away we're making some good inroads into that process. We're removing 20% of total cost. That's a good change. If I wanted to, I can actually just click on this little Excel icon and export these figures. But what I want to do is compare to the second one now. So let's have a look within Cab and Online compared to the original as is. And you can see there we're actually delivering substantially more savings. So we can start to look at 50% cost savings based on using in-cab and online. Now, that makes it really, really easy for us to then go off and assess the relative costs, the numbers of these that we're doing, and whether it's worth the investment into actually in-cab or online. Hopefully that shows you how you can baseline a process, but also how you can then use that baseline to identify the savings that you will deliver by proposed changes. And hopefully you can see that that will help you look at agile iterations and making sure you do the best change first, so that you're delivering as many benefits as you can early on in the process and that you're building confidence in your organization. Apologies for the poor quality of the video, but I wanted to get this video done and out there, following on from the MHCLG workshop last week in Bristol, where this was posed as a question. Thanks.